To listen to this podcast in English, please fast forward a little bit. Hoje eu tive o prazer de gravar com o Joel Salatin. Ele é um ícone da produção rural, um autor renomado dos Estados Unidos, que tem um trabalho com a agricultura familiar, ganhou uma escala muito grande. A gente fala sobre o tamanho da propriedade, a história da propriedade, o tipo de pensamento, os princípios por trás do que embasou toda a trajetória da Polyfaces, que é a fazenda dele. E ele foi muito gentil com a gente. E no final do podcast ele fala também um pouquinho sobre a questão de como ele entende que a gente precisa ter cada vez menos intervenção governamental nos comércios locais e de produção rural. Faz muito sentido para quem busca a viabilidade das biorregiões, para quem busca repovoar as biorregiões com pequenas propriedades familiares que funcionam com ética ecológica. Um podcast muito bom, com uma das referências mundiais, que foi muito generoso com o tempo dele e muito simpático com o compartilhar de informações, de pensamentos. Deixo aqui com vocês então o Joel Salatin.
Mr. Joel, thank you very much for your time, your generosity. We have exchanged a few emails and you were very kind to agree to some topics. And my will to talk to small Brazilian farmers and sharing your wisdom, sharing your techniques, your approach, your vision of life and the world and spirituality. And hopefully we'll share this to the Brazilian family farm audience. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. It's a privilege and an honor, Eurico.
Oh, it's my privilege. It's our privilege to have you dedicating so much time to the autonomy. I would say, would you agree? We need to value more, build and secure autonomy. We're losing our capacity to decide over our own lives in rural territories. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And so you have kind of a two-edged sword here, a two thing that's going on. One is you have government intervention. That's a broad statement, but government intervention in either subsidizing certain things or prohibiting certain things. And so you have government intervention on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you have the farmer who is looking at this interventive reality, this platform, and the ones who say, "Well, I'm going to jump in with the government help, whatever help that is." They basically sell their souls. They sell their souls to a government agenda, which is typically not in the best interest of the farmer, but is in the best interest of a globalized system, World Economic Forum, whatever you want to call it. It's a system, and so farmers unwittingly place themselves under the protection, the decision making of a system that is not in their best interests, and that's exactly where we are right now.
And then it follows another question, which is, why do you think so many people still believe the government it's a benevolent force instead of an evil one?
Yeah, that is a profound question, and I guess the answer is just that people tend to want to be convenient, lazy, convenient, the least path. And so as long as the soccer game is on the television and there's beer in the pantry, life is good, and the roof doesn't leak. Okay, and so our one of our founding fathers, Ben Franklin, probably a lot of people know Ben Franklin. He always said a person that is willing to give up freedom for security. Talking about the government. If you're willing to give up freedom in order to gain security, you get neither. You get neither freedom nor security. And I think that is absolutely true. Um, and so we have been taught that that the government is our friend when actually governments basically steal from people and kill people. And so you cannot here for me this is really a good bottom line. You cannot have big government and thriving small business. You can have big government and big business because they collude, they get together and they help each other. But you cannot have flourishing small business and big government at the same time.
But the corollary of that is that if you have big business and big government together, I suppose you would agree with that as well. You cannot have healthy land, healthy culture, and autonomous people.
Well, absolutely, because the interests of big government and big business are primarily financial. They are not stewardship. They are not caretaking. They are not they are interested in exploitation. I mean, think of the conquistadors who Spain sent to South America. They were not coming to be kind and gentle and caretakers. They came to exploit, to rape, to pillage. And it's that same conquistador mentality that dominates the world system. Well, in the Bible, it's called the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. The lust of the flesh is immorality. The lust of the eyes is greed, and the lust of the flesh is power. And so you have power, greed, and immorality. That is what dominates the world system. And so if you want a different situation for yourself, then you have to extricate yourself. You have to disentangle from that system. That means you don't use chemicals, you use compost. That means you don't try to sell to the big commodity outfits. You find neighbors who buy stuff from you. That means you don't grow what everybody else grows. You grow something different. So you can have a brand, you can have a product that's differentiated that you can sell.
And somehow that means that you don't ask for permission as well to do these things.
Right. You simply look around and you say, what does our society need? We grow chickens, beef, and pork, and lamb and turkey and all this stuff. And you could easily say to us, well, don't Americans have plenty of chicken? Who needs to grow more chicken? But it's not good chicken. It's not good beef. It's not good pork. And so we have found, just like people all over the world have found, niches for that. If you know at all our own family's story, and I think this might be appropriate to share since I'm doing this for Brazilians, our family, after World War II, my dad flew in the Navy in World War II, and he wanted to go to South America to start a farm because land was cheaper, smaller governments, more open markets, and so after World War II, he ended up with Texas Oil Company, and eventually became Texaco, and was a bilingual accountant on the Wildcat Ventures off the coast of Venezuela. In 7 years, saved enough money to buy a 1,000-acre farm in the highlands of Venezuela. And so we moved out there, built a house, and began raising. So he said, "What do the people need here?" And this is in the mid 1950s. Okay, he said, "Well, what they need animal protein, they need dairy, and we'll start with chickens because chickens grow pretty fast. It's pretty easy to get in." And so we started raising chickens, and in just a few months, he literally took over the entire local chicken market from the local indigenous farmers, not because we didn't like the indigenous farmers, but because their farmers, their chickens were filthy. They had subtherapeutic pneumonia from running through the sewer pots and the unsanitary, unhygienic situations. our chickens were very clean. They had nice dry beaks. They didn't have snot coming out of their nostrils. And so Dad very quickly, literally took over the local chicken market. Were there plenty of chickens? Yes, there had always been plenty of chickens, but we offered a better quality chicken, and this is true throughout the world. Now, especially with genetically modified organisms, with chemical agriculture, and the general the lack of respect for biology in food. That food is primarily a mechanical thing, not a biological thing, and so the opportunity, the opportunity for bringing something better to the marketplace has never been more ripe than it is today.
You have a very you're very skillful with the language, and I think this matters. And I'll explain why I'm heading this way. When you said you were beyond organic, you open up a window in people's mind to discuss what organic was at that time, and it was already corrupted. When you say that you have pasture raised and terminated chicken, you open up a question, but hang on, isn't it mine this way too? And then you let people go down the rabbit hole of discovering that the terminology is actually against their health. But you are one of the very few people that does this very well. And I think it matters because if people think that they're discussing the same thing, they're not going to get to new conclusions.
That's right, and that's one reason why we don't have on our product here, we don't have any certification labels. We don't have organic, animal welfare, fair trade. I mean, there are all sorts of labels that are put on. The problem is that none of these labels is comprehensive to the discussion, and I deeply appreciate you bringing that up because all of these labels and certifications have to they have to limit the regimen. You can't talk about every possible nuance. For example, organic carrots. Let's say you have organic carrots. Well, those carrots can be organic. They can be fertilized with on-farm compost. They can be fertilized with fish emulsion from Japanese bycatch drag nets that destroy the fisheries in the oceans. They can be fertilized with, with homemade worm tea. I call it worm pea tea. Okay, but there are other things. And that's just a fertilizer.
And,
they can be,
and it can be a monoculture of 1,000 hectares.
Yes.
Irrigated in the drought time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as weed control, you can use plastic, you can use mulch, you can use propane, wheat fire, with flare, flames that go by. You can use tillage. There are multiple ways, but as soon as you say organic and there's organic on the label, none of those nuances enter the conversation. That they all people, oh, it's organic. Okay, well, I know what that is. Everybody assumes they know what that is, and then when you say, well, did you know they just used 5 tons of plastic in order to keep the weeds down in their organic carrots? Somebody would say, what? Are you kidding me? 5 tons of plastic for, and suddenly, there's this whole new, new conversation going on. And so we don't participate in any of, and have tried to use phrases like pastured chickens, beyond organic, those kind of things in order to stimulate somebody to at least stop, turn their head and say, oh, what's that? Well, then you can have a conversation. I mean, like right now, organic in beef production, it makes no mention whatsoever of vaccines. So organic has never taken a position on vaccines. Well, that's been a fairly, benign issue until now, where we've got this new generation of mRNA, which is not really a vaccine. It's called a vaccine, but it's not really a vaccine. And so here we have organic not addressing not only the old style of vaccines, but by default, it's not addressing the mRNA, which is developed. It's not just an old style vaccine immunostimulant. It actually changes the DNA. That's why it's called mRNA.
It's a gene therapy. It's not a vaccine.
Yeah, it's genomic change as opposed to an immune stimulant. Okay, and so it works completely different. But they've very cleverly called it a vaccine in order to keep it under this same in order to maintain its status as a non-discussable item in the organic certification.
I want to bundle some threads, and it's not a question, but it's a comment that I would like you to expand on. You were talking about your family in Venezuela raising healthy chickens. Now we're talking about the use of language, and you arrived at the sharp observation that the pharmaceutical companies infiltrated people's meanings, the etymology. They infiltrated what it means. I'll give you an example. In Brazil, it's a non-conversation. You can be organic and use all of the chemicals. The pharmaceutical ones I'm talking about. No, you can't use herbicides, pesticides, whatever. But it's okay to use all of the vaccines. It's okay to use all of the pour-ons, all of the drenches, all of the. It's okay. Yeah, there's the legislation. The legislation requires farmers to comply with the procedures. They visit you, they look at your books, and they ask you, have you given the TB or whatever? They look at all the if you farm animals, if you're a rancher, they will actually make you comply with the pharmaceuticals. So I'm bundling threads, like I said. So one more comment on top of that. You once said, and I find that very appropriate. You said you want to know your farmer, asks him what he reads. And we are talking to you have a lot of books behind you. So bundling all these threads, your father was probably aware of different ways of farming chickens because he was well-read, spoke 2 languages. People can say what they want about you, but you have been spreading ecological ways of doing things for free for about 4 decades now. So you've been sharing the knowledge.
Right.
And then to bundle all of these, you have replaced the need for labels with a keenness to develop relationships. Yeah. So we have a thread there. You need to study. You need to be available for new relationships with people and customers. And we need, and I'm supposing that's what I want you to expand on. And I'm supposing you have to have a very clear idea of what your life's legacy will be like, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing all these things together.
Yes. So our mission statement here is very simple. Our mission statement is to develop economically, ecologically, and emotionally enhancing agricultural prototypes and facilitate their duplication throughout the world. So the first part of that is to develop emotionally, economically, and ecologically. In other words, all 3 of those have to be together. You can't have a viable agricultural model that is not that doesn't have economic integrity. Yeah, go ahead.
What is emotionally enhancing in your view? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So emotionally enhancing is, are young people attracted to it? That's number one for me. That's the ultimate that's the ultimate benchmark. And I don't know how it is in Brazil, but at least in the U.S., our average farmer is now 60 years old. Young people don't want to go into farming, and there are numerous threads to this, but in general, farming is not considered a viable vocation for smart, smart, sharp young people, and nobody goes to school to the guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor says, "Wow, Enrico, you are so smart. You should be a farmer." Nobody says that. So when I say emotionally enhancing, I mean that it is attractive. It is attractive socially and emotionally, and at the soul level. Wow, this is something I can enjoy. I can be fulfilled and enjoy doing. And if you have to drive all day on a tractor with a hazmat suit on, and and if you're nothing more than a pawn in a globalist system of commodification and chemicals, that is not an attractive vocation for most people.
Well, you're dumbing down a person, because you're giving a person a day full of tasks that are beneath its intellectual and emotional ability.
That's right. So it has to fulfill all three things. The ecology has to work, the economics have to work, and the emotions have to work. And if we can get those three things together, then we really have a viable vocation. And then the second part of that is, and to facilitate their duplicate. In other words, once you discover this, you don't just circle the wagons, hold on to it, and say, I'm going to copyright and patent this, and nobody else can see what we're doing. No, we facilitate its duplication throughout the world. So I write, I speak, I do podcasts, I promote these things. Now, let me tell you, we don't have all the answers. I don't purport to have all the answers, but we do think we have some, and we think we have some answers that are far better than what's coming out of the conventional government system. And so to the best of my ability, I tried to broadcast these things that we have learned, that we've found that have been successful for us. And listen. We run a very formal apprenticeship stewardship program here, with young people, and we have, this year we had 130 applicants for 11 spots. Now, people say, oh, young people don't want to go into farming. No, I think they actually do, if they saw a pathway that gave them a nice living, was satisfying, and was an enjoyable place to be. So we don't have a big problem attracting young people, which to me is the litmus test for is this a viable, credible, authentic vocation that is attractive. That's the emotional enhancing part.
You have very famously as well inspired young Christian families around North America, in Canada, I suppose. You've been speaking at conferences that talk about homesteading. And I want to circle back to something that you said, which is you don't have all of the answers, but I think you have led the way in building a skill that is very important, which is we need to be the leaders of our own lives. We need to be capable of developing metrics, forms of evaluating our own way. And you've been very good as well in guiding the answers, or if not the answers, but at least the right questions, which is, can we do this in an ecological way? Can we do this in an economic viable way? So I don't care much about the solutions, because they might not be replicable in different geography, culture, economy, but the way of thinking is very replicable. and it doesn't need to be large scale. It actually works better if you are in a network of small farmers finding new solutions. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I absolutely would. The truth is that the variety of gifts and talents necessary to be successful don't grow on the same pair of legs. Teams always succeed more than individuals. Now, we have individuals that are geniuses and things, but even Edison, when he invented the light bulb, had a team behind him that was doing the experimentation. He might have been, the visionary up above the umbrella over it, but he had a team. Almost every successful venture in the world, in history, has happened with a team. And so we farmers are guilty of this. We're fiercely independent. I don't want anybody around, and I want to do it myself. And as a result, we end up frittering away a lot of time doing things that we're not good at. And so don't be afraid to hire an accountant, to hire a mechanic, to hire, and when I say hire, I don't mean necessarily an employee. I mean, bring somebody onto your team. Everybody doesn't have to own a cattle trailer. One guy that enjoys driving and running a cattle trailer can run it for several people. Everybody doesn't have to own a tractor. You can share tractors. You can share balers. You can share equipment. And as you do this, your cost then drops off, because as soon as you start investing in capital intensive infrastructure, the more use you can get out of it, the cheaper it becomes per hour to run. And so sharing a collaborative economy is a really big deal. And so we don't grow our grain, for example. We buy it, but years ago, this is a great story. When GMOs came in, genetically modified organisms, we went to the mill, the feed mill that we were using for our chicken and pig feed, and said, "Hey, we want GMO free." Well, they laughed at us. It's all the same. It doesn't make any difference. And so I went searching in the area to see if I could find somebody that had a mill, and I found a guy about what it would be 25 kilometers away. I'm converting my miles to kilometers. I'll do the math for you.
The imperial system.
Yeah, he's about 25K away, and he had an old 1950s hammer mill in his barn that they used to use to grind and mix their own chicken feed back before the big poultry companies became vertically integrated and brought their own feed. And I said, "Would you mind, grinding some GMO-free feed for us?" He said, "Oh, I would love to." He said, "I'd love to find a use for that old mill. It's obsolete. We haven't used it for a long time." So he cleaned the cobwebs off, and he found a couple local farmers that were raising GMO-free, bought that. Well, that was whatever that's been, 25 years ago. Today, that mill and started up. And that mill today employs, I think, 4 people, has 3 bulk trucks, and is the go-to GMO-free feed mill in the entire Mid-Atlantic region, and services an area, a radius of about 300K. And so, I didn't go out and say, well, I guess I have to grow my own grain and get my own combine and get my own feed bins. I went out and found a partner, a team player who already had that infrastructure, and said, "Hey, can we resurrect this into a new time?" And so we've done that. Actually, we had a local slaughterhouse that was going to go out of business. The owner was 80 years old, and so I found a partner. We bought it. And we've now kept that small federal inspected slaughterhouse open. When we bought that slaughterhouse, we were servicing. We had 4 private labels. We bought that 15 years ago. There were 4 private labels. In other words, 4 farmers that had their own, farm label, XYZ Farm. 4 private labels, and Polyface, our farm, was roughly 42% of the business in that small slaughterhouse. Today, 15 years later, Polyface, we have doubled or tripled in volume, but we're now only 21% of the volume through that plant, and we have almost 90 private labels. So we have been a critical conduit for farmers to be able to get their livestock slaughtered and under inspection, so it's legal to sell. And so these are things, these are collaborations that farmers need to reach out and make, and these skills and talents and passions are there. They're in their community. We just need to find them, and when we find them, 1 + 1 = 3. That's what's fun about it.
Yeah, the sum it's greater than the how to say, the whole. It's greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'll tell you a short story. My grandfather had to find a viable way to farm after he was 45, 50. He moved to the middle of Brazil, hilly savanna country, 6 months, very dry, and 6 months that poured maybe 1,500 mils of rain or more. So, very drastic shift. And he was looking for animals for that area. He went with goats, and he became the first goat's cheese producer in his area. Eventually, he built up this business, and he had about 150, 200 maybe milking goats. And then and he used to give a little bit of grain, GMO-free corn, with the grasses that he used to chop and give in the milking stand. Mm-hmm. Now he went and bought a grain that was tainted with a fungicide and was transgenic, and the guy didn't tell him. In 3 days, he lost his business. Everything died. Everything died. So now he was about 60 something. He went to the guy said it was the corporation behind. He went to the corporation said it was the guy that didn't let him know, because they for sure told the guy in the local store that corn was not suitable for consumption. Mm-hmm. Anyway, long story short, he lost the business and had to start again. And so I was raised in a family with very, very suspicious of corporations and power, and with very deep scars with the GMO industry. Now this led me to think something that is related to the way you name things, the words you use. I'm talking you, Joel. Agriculture is no longer about producing food. It's a platform for pharmaceuticals and byproducts of mining and petrochemicals. We still use the term agriculture, but if the main people making money behind are corporations, that no longer can be called agriculture. That's something else. And the same goes for many words that we use today that they mean something else. Now, going back to your way of distributing power and sharing the leadership in local areas, you've been very big against GMOs, legislation, and all of that. I don't think the legislation we have is incompetence. I think it works very well for big business and big government, and it works very well to erase, to smash, to destroy the small ones, especially those with an ecological consciousness. I would like you to talk a little bit about the challenges you have been facing with chickens, rabbits, pork, cows, all of these animals, improving your land with no use of chemicals for 40 years and pioneering the slaughtering house inside the farm. I recently have a discussion with a local vet, and he said that you were only successful because when you started, the laws were not that strict in the US, which is, of course, bonkers. you've been facing strict laws for decades. Can you talk about the solutions you guys came about? Everything movable, everything cheap and multifunctional. But I'm not that interested in how can I put this? I'm very interested in the thinking behind, not necessarily the equipment that came about. Does it make sense? Because for 40 years you have been producing chemical free, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that was a major effort because everyone else was going the opposite way.
Sure. So perhaps the thing to do would be to back up a little bit, because we came to this farm after we left Venezuela. We came here after we got run out of Venezuela in a junta in 1959 and 60 with Pérez Jiménez was in control. We came to this farm in 1961, this property, and the question was, well, one was how do we make a living? But this place was extremely. It was a gullied rock pile. In fact, we had so little soil when Dad began rotating cows. We began using electric fence. There was not enough soil to hold up electric fence stakes. So Dad got used car tires and mixed concrete in a wheelbarrow, put the concrete in the car tires, pushed a piece of pipe, down in it, and he'd put these on the tractor platform. And my brother and I, we were just little boys, but the two of us could heave these concrete tires off the tractor platform as Dad drove slow through the field, and he'd go and stick the electric fence stakes down in the half-inch pipe in these concrete tires to put up a cross fence, to put up electric fence. Now, I have never been any place in the world that didn't have enough soil to hold up electric fence stakes. And so I'm saying that so that when I talk about a gullied rock pile, people understand I'm not being sensational. It's
hyperbole.
It was unbelievable. I've never seen another place quite like it, except maybe in Israel. Israel maybe has some that bad, but not here. So anyway, so we asked, well, how does nature build soil? How do animals work in nature? And those were the overriding questions. And what we found was, well, soil is built with decomposing carbon, decomposing organic matter. That's how soil is built. And so we began experimenting with compost. Well, how can we build compost without without all the turning and the petroleum and the labor and the machinery to turn it? And so after Dad passed away, I came up with the idea, because we were composting and we were handling it, turning it. A neighbor would come down with his front end loader. We didn't have a tractor with a front end loader, so the neighbor would come down. He'd work all day for $100, and he was actually very happy to work with a young guy like me, because he was old and lonely, and his kids didn't want the farm, and he enjoyed spending the day with me, and so we got along. But then I came up with the idea of using pigs to turn the compost. So we now turn thousands of tons of compost using pigs. We embed corn in there. The corn ferments in the winter bedding pack, and then the pigs seek the fermented corn and oxygenate it, aerate it, and turn it into aerobic compost. So the animals do the work. So when you're asking, how do you think about these things? We're always thinking, how does how does the pattern work in nature? In nature, you have synergistic, symbiotic relationships. Nobody sprays tick parasiticide on deer. What controls the ticks in nature? Well, it's birds. And you see the egret on the rhino's nose in Africa, for example. And so And so I developed an eggmobile, a portable chicken house that follows the cows in the pasture. So the cows move on, the eggmobile comes in behind the chickens, scratch through the cow patties, eat out the fly larvae, eat the ticks and the crickets and the grasshoppers that are now exposed from the cattle having just grazed the area. And they act as a biological pasture sanitizer behind the cows. So instead of using porons and grubicides to get rid of the worms and the pathogens in the cows, we just collect $100,000 worth of eggs as a byproduct of the pasture sanitizer. So the other thing is that in nature, animals move. They're not confined in a certain spot. They move. And they move, seasonally. They move with predators. There are a lot of reasons why animals move in nature. And so we began moving things around. Everything was portable infrastructure, portable shelters, well, if you're going to move everything around, they need water. Well, how are we going to get water out here to these? So we began building ponds, and we now have 20 kilometers of buried water line from high ponds up in the upper valleys that gives us high pressure gravity water without any pumps, no electricity over the whole farm to give us water against every field. So that the cows and everything doesn't have to walk in a pond or a creek or soil our riparian area. We can protect our riparian area. So it grows a lot of moles and voles and chipmunks and squirrels to feed the foxes and the coyotes to keep them out of the chickens. Yeah, this is all, it's all a very choreographed. It's strategically choreographed to be symbiotic, diversified, and synergistic and integrated rather than segregated. We grow the corn here, the cows here, we sell it over there. No, it's all an integrated, not a segregated system.
I want to bring some nuance to this, because when you first started, or your father, and when you were younger and doing all this with no soil and an ecological approach, you probably went to many challenges because plants were probably not nutritious. So your animals were probably having many problems because of that. So I just want to say that so people understand the how profound it is, because you are actually building soil and caring for animals without chemicals. Meanwhile, your soil was not good enough to provide them sustenance to be strong. So you got a double whammy there, don't you?
Yes, very much so. And the when we started, I can't remember them all, but I remember numerous veterinary problems. We'd call the veterinary out, and we'd have, whether it was a birthing problem, a pink eye, different issues. And I remember lambs, here at the fireplace inside, orphans and all that stuff. And you still have some of that. But now we have almost 1,000 head of cattle. We raise, 800 to 1,000 head of hogs a year, 30,000 chickens. We get 200 dozen eggs a day, thousands of turkeys. This is not a small operation anymore. And we don't have a vet bill. Zero.
That's amazing.
A veterinary, but we do not have a veterinary bill. However, we do feed tons of kelp, seaweed, dehydrated seaweed from Iceland. That's our main mineral. We feed kelp and Redmond salt. And I can tell you, based on what I know about the other farmers in the region, we probably feed 3 or 4 times the minerals that other farmers in the area feed. But for me, that's a lot cheaper than medical bills.
Well, and brings you autonomy, freedom as well, because the vet bills come come tied with pharmaceuticals, and then you can't wean them off.
And here's the thing: as soon as you enter the system, the government is so pervasive in its databases that as soon as a veterinarian makes a visit or you ask for help about something, you get entered into a system. Oh, farm X has a problem with, brucellosis or whatever, and suddenly you're entered into this database. So we don't fill out forms, we don't fill out surveys, we just don't participate in any of this stuff. Now, does that mean we never lose an animal? No. Once in a while we do lose an animal, but when we lose one, look, if you've got 500 cows and all of them are healthy but one, you don't have a problem. You don't have a problem in the herd. You have a problem with the genetics of one animal. One animal is not adapted to your system. And so let that animal cull itself. Let it, okay, I don't work here. I'm gone, all right? The other 499 will be fine. What people do, though, oh, I've got one sick animal. I must be pharmaceutically disadvantaged. Now I've got to vaccinate everybody. Listen, we believe very strongly that nature's default position is wellness. And if something is not well, then probably it's my fault. My fault could be anything from I don't have them in a hygienic situation, they're unsanitary, they're cold, they're too hot, they're too wet, they're too dry, they're not getting enough water, they're stressed, they're not getting the right nutrition. And it could even be that I used the wrong genetics. I got the wrong bull, I got the wrong ram, and I've got to work through that.
In that case, you're going to have many more unadapted animals. I just want to bring color to that because you've been selecting your own animals as well for about 40 years.
Yes, that's correct. In fact, we're now hatching our own laying chickens, not our meat chickens, but our laying chickens. We've been doing that. I think this is year 13 or 14 at. And man, I can't believe the difference in these chickens versus the ones from the hatchery, even the good hatcheries. These chickens are heavier. They weigh more. They're smarter. And if you've ever seen the size of a chicken brain, you know that a little bit can go a long way. And they're actually smarter, and they're more docile. They're more docile because they are from great grandparents who are used to us moving them in the field and walking through them and gathering eggs. And so these chickens are very adapted to the human presence. And that keeps them from being stressed, so you don't have blood spots and meat spots in the eggs that are caused by stress. And so I think we're the only, I don't know of another outfit that gets 200 dozen eggs a day that doesn't candle them. Most places, even half our size, would candle all their eggs to make sure there aren't any blood spots or meat spots in them. We've never candled an egg, and we sell into top restaurants. We sell all over the place, and we've just never had a problem because the birds are very docile. So docile, smarter, and bigger bodied, more robust birds. And because we are saving our question for the genetics is, are you old? Are you healthy? Are you productive? Old, healthy, productive. We don't care how big you are. We don't care what color you are, what kind of feathers you have. Are you old, healthy, and productive? And if you are, we want you. Longevity is the number one criteria for adaptable genetics in your area.
Joe, your work is amazing. I want to circle back to one thing. You guys pioneered many things, but you are an avid reader. And sometimes you talk about concepts that have been explained in different fields. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious about the role of books, the role of other people's work, like Bill Mollison or Alan Savory, or actually there's another question tagged to this one, which is, I would like you to speak to the importance of having a mentor like Alan Nation, because you are that person for many of us now. So it's a double question in the sense. Yeah, it's true. It's a double question in the sense that what were the sources? What was pure creativity, but what were actually drank from books and other people? And because people downplay this today. And tag to this one, the importance of having someone that have covered the ground before you and can actually be the pioneer tree that will bring you in his or her shade.
Yeah, well, as I say, I stand on the shoulders of greatness. I mean, the way innovation happens is you don't invent it all at once. It's incremental, and so I consider my dad was quite a genius in what he developed, but taking his platform, his way of thinking, I have now gone way beyond anything that Dad could have imagined, which is a joy and is bittersweet because I miss him. I wish he'd have seen what the final plant that he planted, where it is. And our son Daniel, who now runs the farm, he's doing things that I haven't thought about. We just had a discussion the other day about a thing. And I said, well, I never thought about that. That's a great idea. And so we build on each other, don't we? We build incrementally on each other. And so this bookshelf behind me has been half of my mentoring. I have read, when people say, well, who was Sir Albert Howard? Who was Bill Mollison? Alan Savory, Alan Nation, Louis Bromfield, these Ed Faulkner. These are giants in the in the thinking of the movement, and if you want to expand your horizons, you've got to go where you're not comfortable going or where you haven't been before, and so if all you're reading is the government bulletin and the handout from JBS,
the Ag Department.
Yeah, the department. If that's all you're seeing and all you're reading, which unfortunately is where most farmers are, they only read the conventional magazines, the conventional government publications. Well, then you're going to be forever stuck in that paradigm, in that mindset, in that thinking. So, I'll just bring another example into it. If right now. We have a health crisis in the United States. We are the sickest country in the world, and so what we're seeing now is literally a revolution in alternative medicine, herbalism. Anybody that knows anything about herbal medicine now is just slammed with students, with people asking questions. How do we do this? And so. If there's one great thing to know about the quote unquote farm crisis and the situation we're in now that you clearly articulated in the preparatory notes to me, the fertilizer's up 5 times, chemicals are up 8 times. The crisis and the income is not up 5 times. The income is not up 8 times. And so, so we're in this crisis. Well, the crisis creates the opportunity. And so the opportunity is, I don't like this situation. Let me look at an alternative situation. And so for me, my mentoring was not only these books, but also individuals. I had, of course, I knew Alan Nation and I were good friends. He was next to my dad, he was certainly my greatest mentor. Alan Savory has been instrumental. As well as, there are some people that you don't know, people like, Reed Putney. He was a local guy here in Virginia, but I'd go have conversations with him. He was my dad's age, a little younger, and I would run ideas by him. Another guy, A.P. Thompson, he was an orchardist. He wasn't a livestock farmer. He was an orchardist, but he was all about non-chemical horticulture. And he was certainly a mentor here in Virginia. Don and Ellie Pruis, they were livestock people. I mean, I could name more and more names, but as a very young guy in my early 20s, I joined the biological farming organization. I went to the meetings and I hung out with these tremendous older, icons who had these years of experience. And that provided me a platform to at least start and then refine and develop and adapt, beyond where they've gone. I will say that in my career, speaking, to conferences and things, as you go north, as you get colder. Now I'm in the northern hemisphere, so as you go north and get colder, there is way more interest in non-chemical farming than there is in the hot regions. I think because in the hotter regions, you never have to stop. You're always in production. And in the north, when snow comes and it gets cold, you go in the house and you read, or you look at podcasts, or you stop. And so I can tell you it's 5-1 when you go where it's cold. The interest in non-chemical agriculture, direct marketing, all the alternatives, or herbalism and everything, it is 5 times more in the cold areas than it is in the hot areas in agriculture. I think because the cold makes you stop farming and start thinking for a change.
It makes you sync with the natural cycles. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, yes.
Joel, just a quick question. I'll give you perhaps a picture that you're not going to be happy about it. But in Brazil, you're most known amongst industrial farmers, people who have 1,000 hectares and above, ranches that couldn't care less about chemicals. They integrate crop with ranching. I believe actually the only reason Brazilian crops are still going, it's because of ranching. They don't talk about this. They talk about integration as if it was something purely economical. But what I think it is that the chemical model is already bankrupt, and the ranching then comes for a few months every year, and keeps the soil barely alive. Anyway, you're more known, or you're better known amongst big farmers. But you are a family farmer. You started with 40 hectares, I'm sorry. What's the picture today? How many people working with you? What's the land base? What are the prospections for partnerships, for people, for honest connections with clients in the local region?
Sure,
Just
sure.
a general picture.
Yeah. So general picture now where we are, 22 people earn their income from our farm now. We have moved from the original 200 hectares, most of which was forest. When Mom and Dad bought the original 200 hectares, we've now moved to, I'm doing the math in my head here. We've now moved to we've now moved to 400 hectares, okay, with about 120 hectares of pasture. That's what we own, and then we lease about another 600 hectares of pasture land in the area from about 12 landowners. So these are all, relatively smaller, 40 to 50 hectare places. And we lease about 10 or 12 of those in the area to expand, to have more ground, especially for the cattle. And when I say 22 salaries, realize that 4 or 5 of those are not actually hardcore farming. They are in shipping, packaging, shipping, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Logistics.
Logistics. So we have a full-time farm mechanic. There's always something broken, and so we have a maintenance technician, and a mechanic, an accountant, and a group of part-time sales folks that work on commission, that call customers and sales. We have somebody that does our website. We have a publicist and my personal assistant and publicist and all that web, the social media end. That's pretty much a full-time thing as well. So there's really only about 10 or 12 of us that are actually, hardcore. Well, I'm not even in that group anymore. I'm doing a lot of this, and so I'm still the number one chainsaw guy. When they want trees cut. When they want trees cut, they come to old dad, and so I'm still the main chainsaw guy. But there's only about 10 or 12 of us that actually, are hardcore, actually moving animals and gathering eggs and doing the actual farming.
No, it's I think it's an intensive use of a land base in a ecological and socially ethical way. I recently heard Gabe Brown and Temple Grandin with a statement that I would like you to talk a little bit about it, but I'll give you some context for you to expand on, which is they said the future of the agriculture or the primary production industry, it's no longer in the hands of those who were born and raised in farms. Most successful people will have come from outside the industry. So I want to put on top of that people cannot look at you today and try to mimic what you're doing. They will go crazy. It's too many ideas, too many businesses branching out. So I would like you to comment on this. We have a resurgence of farming people. They are usually, not always, but they're usually believers. They're usually Christian people. They're usually people who cherish, like you very well put, the quality of their food. Some of them, many of them actually came into this because they were trying to guarantee nutritious and clean food for themselves, and then it became a business. You started speaking a lot in homesteading conferences for very small farmers, and some of them are using or replicating some of your solutions. I would like you to comment on the resurgence of people interested in farming from a spiritual and an ecological, ethical perspective, but also how can they actually become viable? Because that's the main challenge. They come and sometimes they go because they cannot make enough money.
Yeah. So it's such a wonderful question. So we have in the U.S. here, we have an absolutely burgeoning homestead movement of back to the land, self-reliance, independence. As I mentioned at the top, disentanglement. I want to disentangle from the system, and so the secret, and this is why maybe we need to, this will be our concluding big point here of the podcast. But that's why I'm such a proponent of a food emancipation proclamation that would allow anybody, any farmer, to sell anything to anyone who wants to come to his or her farm and conduct a food transaction. Right now, I can't sell a chicken pot pie to a neighbor without a government license. I can't butcher a steer in the backyard and cut ribeye steaks out and sell it to a neighbor who wants ribeye steaks without a government permission. And so what the food safety, food regulatory laws have made the entry level infrastructure and the entry level licensing to be able to enter the marketplace for a small operator so onerous that most people's dreams have to be birthed at such a scale to birth that they never get birthed. Babies have to be small to be birthed. You can't birth a 50-pound baby. And so if in order to sell a value-added convenience food, a slaughtered animal, a piece of ground beef to a neighbor, if in order to do that, you need a $2 million facility in order to do it, that becomes a prohibition to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4 animals. If you need government permission, if you need a $500,000 facility to sell a glass of milk to a neighbor, you can't do that with 2 cows. You need 500 cows. And so the pathway in, yes, it is a homestead tsunami. It is a homestead interest. It is an urban to rural. There's an understanding with the dysfunction in the world right now. I think there is an overall understanding. If the wheels fall off and things go down, I don't want to be in the city. There's a lot of that, okay? But when you said, how do you keep them from burning out, or how do you enable them to be profitable? It is enabling people to engage in the convenience food market. That is where it is. Right now, we sell chickens to a restaurant in Stanton that makes a Polyface chicken pot pie. They have it on the menu, Polyface chicken pot pie. And so they buy a chicken from us for $20, and they turn that into $400 worth of pot pies.
Wow.
And so here's the deal. How many hectares would you need if you could get roughly, $200 a chicken? How many chickens would you have to raise to make a living farming? Well, suddenly now you don't need 100 hectares. All you need is 5 hectares, and you can raise 1,000 chickens, and you can make whatever that is, 15,000 pot pies. And you've made a living on 5 hectares or less. All right. And so the pathway in, look, we small farmers, everybody's talking about, well, you need a grant. How can we help you transition? How can we help you do this? No. All we need is the freedom to access the market and the accountability that comes from being responsible for our decisions. Right now, all the government subsidies allow farmers to make terrible decisions, but the government picks up the slack from their terrible decision. And so they continue to raise the same thing over and over again, even when the world doesn't need any more of it.
Because it's not about agriculture. The government keep them alive because they became the biggest platforms for pharmaceuticals, petrochemicals,
yes.
and mining byproducts.
Yes, that's right.
It's not inefficient. It's efficient, but just not for farmers.
Yeah, it's efficient, but not for earthworms and not for people.
Yeah, it's not fair.
So, yeah, and so my objective here is to free up farmers so that the how is it in English? The butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, from the old fairy tales, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker can be re-embedded in the community, so that instead of a nation being serviced by 3,000 mega processing facilities, it's serviced by 300,000 community-oriented, community-scaled facilities. That is a much more secure, safe, and stable system, and is far more transparent, and therefore, much safer food.
Your work in this area is it's very important at the moment. Just to expand this on topic, not to hold you for too long, but you've been teaching people how to be non-compliant and circumvent some of the bureaucracies. You actually been teaching people how to look up for bureaucratic loopholes and become more viable. And on top of that, I want to say that small farmers who have a much harder time being viable if they do not integrate animals in an ecological way. They bring autonomy over, composting, soil building, less labor, so and so. You're aware of that. But once you go to animal production, you have to circumvent many more laws and bureaucrats. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you can sell a tomato anywhere, but you can't sell sausage. You can't sell summer sausage or charcuterie or pepperoni or any of these other things. And right now, at least in America, half of the consumer dollar is animal protein. The other half is everything else, from vegetables to produce to flour, dry goods, sugar, nuts, berries, all those things. So if you're going to really impact the food system, you need to create competition and opportunity within the animal protein sector, dairy, poultry, meat. And so, we've been conducting the Rogue Food conferences here to circumvent. We say circumvention, not compliance. And there are numerous ways, from renting land and slaughtering somebody's animal on their own rental piece of land, for $1 for 10 foot by 10 foot spot, to selling a butchery course and giving away the meat as part of the curriculum. We sell you an educational course on the internet, and you get the meat as free as a curriculum. So there are numerous things. There's a lady that started a food church. There are numerous private buying groups. There's of course herd share in milk. There's pet food. There are numerous states that allow pet food. You can register everything as a pet food, sell it as pet food, not for human consumption. So there are numerous things. The fact is that the regulatory oversight has become so onerous that eventually it becomes actually easier to circumvent than to comply. And that's fast where we're coming at this point. Let me just say this to your folks. There are a lot of things that you can be frustrated and angry about. You can make a list if you want to, but our goal needs to be to take all that pent up frustration and anger, whatever, at the system, and invert it, go outside the system, develop alternative systems that provide hope and help when everything else becomes hopeless and helpless. We need to focus our energy on positive change, and not just railing against the man. Let's put our energy in positive change.
Joel, you have been a beacon at that. Thank you very much for your work, your books, your time. You're willing to talk to people, to receive people in your farm, and guide the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very appreciated.
Thank you. All
Cheers,
right.
Bear. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Para que eu possa trazer mais podcasts como esse, com pessoas que nos ajudam a pensar um viver rural digno, com ética ecológica e com viabilidade econômica, eu peço que vocês apoiem o canal. O comentário vale muito, a inscrição no canal e a recomendação dessas entrevistas com os comentários de vocês ajuda a gente a chegar para um número muito maior de pessoas. Eu conto com a sua ajuda. Obrigado.